It's time to hardscape this tank. This is very sharp. Ow! How's it going, my fellow aquarium scientists? It's Professor Fish Tanks here, and welcome to the second episode, if you will, of this series where we are setting up a 10-gallon aquascaped saltwater aquarium, which will be aquascaped with macroalgae. And in this video, we are going to be talking about the hardscape component of the aquarium. That includes the rock, what type of rock we're using, as well as the substrate. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I chose the type of rock and substrate that I did, what are some other alternatives, and if you choose some of these other alternatives, what are the pros and cons and how you should go about that. And as well as how to determine how much of, let's say, substrate you need or rock that you need. And so we're going to talk a little bit about all of that stuff. To start off with, I wanted to talk about the substrate because that's the first thing that's going to go on here. Now I've taken the lid and the light off just to make it a bit more accessible, if you will. But for substrate, what I have decided to use is the Carib Sea reef sand, live sand. Now, what do they mean by live sand? Basically, this is sand that already has beneficial bacteria living in it. And it's supposed to help cycle your aquarium a bit easier. Now, you don't have to use live sand. Some people do have some reservations with that. You can just use regular dry sand. But the reason I decided to choose live sand is because of the fact that it'll help quicken the nitrogen cycle. You still want to make sure you get through, the nitrogen cycle with the ammonia, nitrite, nitrates, all that stuff. But this is just going to help speed it up a little bit. And so this is basically a 10-pound bag. Now, my goal in terms of substrate, it's a 10-gallon tank, and I don't need that thick of a substrate mainly because I'm not going to keep anything in here that needs to dig or burrow or anything like that. Now, if you were going to keep something that likes to burrow itself into the substrate or dig into the substrate, you definitely want a deep substrate. But in this case, I just want a 1-inch sand bed, if you will. And the way that I calculated how much I need, I actually used Bulk Reef Supply's substrate calculator. And the way that it works is you basically tell them what size tank it is, what type of substrate you're interested in, and what thickness or height of the substrate you are looking to get. And then it'll calculate approximately how much substrate you need. And so for a 10-gallon tank, it determined that for a 10-gallon tank, if you want a 1-inch substrate and you're using the Carib Sea reef sand or special grade, you'll do fine with a 10-pound bag. And so that's what I got here. And what I'm going to do is grab some scissors. I'm going to open it, and then we're going to pour the sand in here, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've cut the bag open, and I'm just going to plop it in here, and then after that I'll level it out. But keep in mind, because this is live sand, it does have a little bit of water in it to make sure the bacteria stays alive. So it'll be a little bit difficult because it is wet sand. It will be a little bit difficult to get it out, but just be patient with it. If you need to open up the hole a little bit more, you definitely can. What's interesting is it also comes with, it also comes with a magnetized clarifier. And basically once you fill it up, it's going to be a bit cloudy. You basically add this in there, and it will, clarify the water for you. Many people don't really use it. Usually you should just rely on the filter to filter that out. by adding some filter floss or anything like that. I'm not really going to use that, but it's there if you need it. So I'm just getting as much of it out as I can. Not really going to get all of it out, but that's okay. All right. Okay. Just going to plop that over here. And then I'm just going to use my hand and just... I could use aquascaping tools for this, but oh well. And obviously you can use techniques that you normally would use for freshwater aquascapes to do this. So you can use the rule of thirds and push the sand to one corner or to the back just to give it a bit more dimension and depth if you want. I'm actually going to grab some aquascaping tools and use that because it is very difficult working with live sand or wet sand, I should say. But let me see if I can find my tools. They're somewhere here and they're up there. All right, so I've got my little soil spatula, if you will. I'm not being too fancy with it. Just, you know, just eyeballing it a little bit. I do have like a like a picture of how I want the hardscape to be, but you know, don't be afraid to play with it until you find something that you generally like. All right, I think that'll do okay. And that's the soil, or soil, the sand. But yeah, next up we're going to bring out the rock and put some placement in there and talk about that. So I've got a few pieces of rock that I'm going to be using for the hardscape. So I've got these two large pieces right here, if you can see properly, and then I've got some little I've got some little tiny ones right here. Now this is Carib Sea life rock. Now what life rock is basically it's man-made rock. So this wasn't collected from the ocean. It's man-made, and it's covered in dormant bacteria. And when the rock is put into water, the dormant bacteria awaken, for lack of a better term, and it basically allows you to cycle the aquarium a little bit quicker. And so that's why I chose this rock. There are other alternatives, like with the sand. There are other alternatives to what type of rock you can use. You can use the life rock, which is this, or a rock that has a dormant bacteria. You can use live rock, which is very similar to live sand, which is basically rock that's either man-made or back in the day, it was rock that actually came from the ocean. But basically it's rock that is put in water and is already seeded with bacteria, and it's already cycled through, and you basically plop it into your tank, and you don't have to worry about the nitrogen cycle for the most part, if you will. I personally am not a fan of live rock because with live rock you have the tendency to bring in unwanted pests with you. So the benefit is that it's already seasoned rock that you can place in, and it'll help kickstart your nitrogen cycle. The downside is you might bring some pests in with you, because usually in your aquarium, local aquarium store, the live rock is usually in a tank or a tub or what have you, that is connected to the rest of their system. And so you never know what kind of pests are gonna hitchhike into your main display. So I personally don't like to use live rock. Now, another alternative is using regular dry rock. Marco rocks is a great example, a very popular rock. The thing with that is obviously it doesn't have any dormant bacteria or anything like that. It's just rock. It's man-made rock. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll either put the rock into the tank, fill it up, and let it cycle, or they will put the rock into like a brute trash can, fill it up with salt water, and then they will seed it with bacteria and use an ammonia source to feed the bacteria, and it'll allow the dry rock to basically become live rock, if you will. And then once it's gone through its cycle, and the rock is seeded with bacteria, then people will put it into the tank, and it'll help kickstart the nitrogen cycle, if you will. And so that's another way to go about it. I personally like the Caribsea Life Rock. Haven't really had bad experiences with it, nor have I heard people have bad experiences with it. So I decided to use it for this one. Now, those two large pieces collectively, it was very expensive. At my local fish store, it was like $6.99 per pound. So I decided not to get a lot of it, mainly because it's also very small and I don't really need that much rock. And another benefit is the fact that it's really big. If I need to, I can use a hammer and chisel and break it down into smaller pieces. But before I do anything with the rock, I just want to try to place the rocks in here as is, kind of put them. I think I have a bit of a location where I want these rocks to be, and I just want to see how it fills it up and if I really need to break it up, because obviously once you break the rock, there's no going back, for the most part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the big rocks first. So I have two types of rock. I have the regular life rock, and then I have like the flat rock, which is basically it's flat on the base, and so you can just plop it on the base here. And I strongly encourage you, even with saltwater aquaria, when you're doing hardscape, to utilize techniques the freshwater aquarists use for aquascaping, and kind of look through the rock and find a place or a side that you really think looks nice. And so I kind of like it this way. And so what I'm going to do, and because it's a flat rock, I kind of want this on the foreground. The big rocks I kind of want to put on the side there. So I'm kind of using the rule of thirds, if you will. So let me plop this in here real quick. So I'm thinking maybe around here. Okay. And this big one also kind of has a flat spot right over here, so I can kind of plop it like that if I want, or at an angle a little bit. I'm just gonna find a spot. This might be a bit too big. Maybe not. Maybe I kind of like this. And then I've got these two, which I'm thinking of putting right here. So this is what I have come up with so far. So basically what I've done is, this is the rock with the flat bottom, right? And what I've done is, this one I've kind of perched it up, so there's a little bit of a cave there, if you will. And I have two contact points, one right here, so it's pretty secure on there. Now ideally, if you could, and especially if you're going to be stacking more rocks on top of each other, you want to bond the contact points with like reef cement or things like that. And That way it's not going to go anywhere. But in this case, I think it'll be okay. And I've made the substrate in the back a little more thicker to rest this on. Now, if I was to have a thicker substrate, and if I was gonna put or if I was gonna put anything in here that was gonna dig around or burrow, what I would have done, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but what I would have done is actually put egg crate or light diffuser on the base, put the rocks on top of that, secure the rocks however way I need to, and then put the substrate in and around that. The reason being is if I put the substrate first, put the rock on top, and I have something that's burrowing around or anything like that, there is a chance of the rocks tumbling down and crashing onto your tank. It rarely happens, but it can happen. It's just a precaution, if you will. And so that's a way to kind of prevent anything like that from happening. And it also reduces pressure points on the glass as well by having that light diffuser on there. But in this case, I don't think I really needed it, and I think this is pretty secure anyway. I'll probably put some, when I'm transporting this, I'll put some like the little air-filled plastic bags that you get in packaging. I'll kind of wedge them around here so that way it doesn't move around, and if it does, it won't really hit the glass or anything like that. So, but that's something to think about later on. And so I've got these two rocks here, and I've got the two small here. So if you're looking from the front, that's kind of what it looks like right now. And to be honest with you, I kind of like it. I'm not too sure about this guy right here. I might mess around with that a little bit, but those two were the main concerns if I really needed to break them down or not. And to be honest with you, I don't think I really do. You know, let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. But I think I'm good. And I've made sure as well, you know, I might move it just a little bit, but I made sure that there's enough room around so it's easy to clean, like if I need to clean any algae or things like that, and just for, you know, things to swim around and crawl around, as well as ample spots to put macroalgae in if you need to. So yeah, I think we're pretty good on that end. Looks pretty cool. So next up on the agenda, now that we've got the hardscape set up, is to actually fill the tank up. And so obviously we're going to be using salt water. And what I've decided to do for this setup is, instead of making my own salt water, I decided to buy pre-mixed salt water from my local aquarium store. Now, if you have a local fish store that sells marine fish, saltwater aquarium stuff, fish, supplies, things like that, 9 times out of 10, they will have pre-mixed salt water and RODI water that they sell by the gallon. Now, for a 10-gallon tank, my local fish store was selling pre-mixed salt water for 50 cents a gallon, which for this size of a tank, in my opinion, is a steal. So for 10 gallons, you know, that's roughly, doing the math, I can't think of the math on top of my head, I'll probably put it on the bottom here, but it wasn't a lot, basically. But I decided to go with that mainly because if this was a larger aquarium, it would make sense for me to mix my own salt water, getting an RDI unit and my own salt and doing that. But instead, for a smaller tank, I usually think it's just better just to get salt from your local fish store, salt water from your local fish store. Another thing you want to make sure, if you are going that route, is you want to also ask them what kind of salt they're using. In my case, my local fish store uses Instant Ocean, and what the salinity is, which I believe when I asked the person who was helping me, she said it was, when they tested it, it was about 25 parts per thousand, something along the lines of that. And which is perfect for a saltwater reef tank. Obviously this isn't a saltwater reef tank, but you get the idea. But yeah, so for something like this, what I would recommend and what I will probably be doing is, not only will I be using salt water pre-mixed from the fish store, I'll also be getting my RODI water for freshwater top off from there as well. It just makes sense. And if I was to set this up for my home aquaria as well, and I didn't already have a saltwater mixing station and all that stuff, I would just go to my fish store, get like 2 5-gallon buckets, Home Depot buckets, and just fill them up and then bring them over here and you're good to go. So I do have 2 5-gallon buckets filled up with approximately 10 gallons. And the way that I'm going to go about this is I'm actually going to fill the filtration system first, the canister filter first. That way, if I am short on salt water, at least that is pre-filled and I can get it as much as I can and at least get the filter running, and then I can just fill it with more salt water that I'll get from the store. It's not a big deal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna get this filled. It's gonna take a while because I don't have a pump to pump water into it, so I have to manually pour it in, and that's just gonna take a bit time. So I'm just gonna cut to when the tank is filled up, and then probably hook up the filter as well. So I'll be right back. I almost forgot I needed to show you guys how to fill this guy up. So the way that, from my understanding, you're supposed to do it, you're supposed to take the heater out and then pour water into it. Another way you can do it is by lifting this out and just filling it in. But if you want to do it this route, basically there's a, hopefully you can see it properly. There's a tab right here. You're just going to twist it this way and you'll see it kind of popping up, and then you just lift it very carefully because it's a glass heater, and then you can pour it into there, or you can just unlatch this, lift the top off, and then pour it that way. It's up to you. I'm probably going to do that way because what I'm going to be using to pour salt water in, it's going to make a mess. So just to be on the safe side, I'm just going to open this up and fill it in, and it should be okay. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that real quick. And just like that, the tank is now filled up. Pretty exciting. So the filter is running, and when I first filled it up, it was cloudy, but not that much, to be honest with you. And it's only been running for maybe 20-30 minutes, and it's already pretty cleared up. It's still a little bit hazy, but I figure that by tomorrow it'll be nice and clear. What's interesting is I still have salt water left in the bucket, and it completely I completely forgot that there's a concept called water displacement. And what that basically means is, although this tank can hold up to 10 gallons, you have to also put into consideration the stuff that's in the tank. So that's the rock, the sand, things like that, which is going to displace water, meaning you're not technically putting 10 gallons worth of salt water in here. So I have some salt water still remaining, which is perfectly fine because when I do my water change, I can use some of that. I can use that salt water, and I don't have to go out and get more salt water. So that's really, that's a good thing. But yeah, so the filter is obviously running, and then I let it run for a couple of minutes. It was purging a lot of air, and so I was just very patiently waiting for the intake to basically purge out the air. And I even just gently kind of shook the canister filter too to get any trapped air out. And within a couple of minutes, it completely purged all the air out, and it is now running. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you, and this is why I really love Awaze's canister filters. It is, compared to my other filtration, like the air and the hang on back over there, this is really quiet. Like, if I bring the phone down, I mean, I have a lapel microphone, so I don't know if you can hear it anywhere well, but I promise you, this thing is so quiet. You can barely hear it, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, so it's now running, and then what I'm going to do is let it run overnight, and then hopefully tomorrow it should be cleared up, and I'm going to put the canopy on and the light on, and we'll kind of take a look at it with the light on, see how it looks. So I'll see you tomorrow. So it is the next day, and as you can tell, it's pretty cleared up, actually. And it looks really cool. I kind of finessed with the lighting settings a little bit, and I like how the Carib Sea Life Rock, the purple red hues really glow, because there is some red coloration in the light as well as the blue. And I could just imagine some of the macroalgae, like the red colored macroalgae and things like that, how they're gonna pop in this light. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, almost in a day it's completely cleared, which is really cool. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys like how it looks right now, because I definitely like how it looks. Let me know down in the comments below if there was anything you would change in terms of the hardscape and the layout of this tank. But I'm pretty excited because in the next video we're actually going to be adding some of the first set of inhabitants. So look forward to that. Thank you for your ongoing support. Make sure you hit the notification bell and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos on this project. And let me know down in the comments below how you're enjoying this series. And with that being said, make sure you do your water changes, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.